I liken it to a mindset garden, so to speak, and we all have some big rocks in our garden, and we can choose to throw the rocks out. And we can choose to stop watering the weeds and only water the flowers, but we have to be aware first that this rock is holding us down.
You're listening to the TJ Moore Podcast. Today's guest is Jamie Crosbie from Denver, Colorado. She's a keynote speaker, author, entrepreneur, and performance mindset expert. Jamie has written 3 books. Her TEDx talk has more than 1 million views, and she has spoken on stages around the world, including at the United Nations in Geneva. She is a mother of 2, founder of ProActivate, a global talent acquisition firm she built over more than 2 decades, and has spent her career helping individuals and organizations unlock higher levels of performance. Jamie, thanks for joining me.
It's such a pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.
Your work centers on a simple but powerful belief. Our mindset drives our performance. Why is mindset so often the greatest differentiator between people who have the ability to succeed and those who actually do?
TJ, mindset is the number one inhibitor or contributor of our success. And I believe the reason for that is because our skill set determines if we can do something, but our mindset determines if we will do something. And so often the differentiator between elite performers and mediocrity is just how we think. And it starts with our belief.
And through your belief, behavior, breakthrough methodology, you help people identify these beliefs that are holding them back, shift how they think, and take the actions necessary to create breakthrough results. So why is this so important now for people to apply in their own lives?
Well, I believe it's so important, TJ, because I started looking at what makes incredibly talented people very successful, or sometimes what makes incredibly talented people, whether it be in business, in sales, and athleticism, what makes them sometimes underperform. And it's not because they lack ability, but something gets in the way of them executing that ability. And so what I came to understand is that our beliefs drive our behaviors, and our repeated behaviors create results, right? So if we want a breakthrough result, we have to really look upstream at the belief. And so it really starts with, okay, what do I believe about myself, the situation, other people, or even just what's possible? And then the behavior component, what am I doing or avoiding doing because of my belief? And then when I change the belief, I can change the behavior. And that's where the breakthrough occurs, because different behavior creates that opportunity for a different result.
Now, Alice Hyman, a sales strategy expert, said this about your ability to capture the attention of people at your events. Jamie was really able to impact the audience in a way that was different for each and every person. I could see on their faces that they were so excited to understand themselves in a different way. So let's talk about invisible stories or limiting beliefs that hold people back. What are some of the examples of these stories that you hear the most?
It's oftentimes not believing we're something enough. And this is actually what my TED Talk is about, TJ. It's called Liar, Liar, Life on Fire, How to Break Through Your Lies to Your Truth. And I say that because I really frame these limiting beliefs as lies. When we start to actually believe that they're facts and true, it really holds us back. And somehow, most of us at some point have adopted a lie about ourselves and signing almost a silent contract we didn't know we signed. And it could sound like I'm not good enough. I'm not ready. I don't have enough of something. I'm not something enough. What if I fail? What will people think? Those are examples, but oftentimes we don't even realize when we're doing it.
Yeah, that's why they can seem invisible even to us. Actually, sometimes they're more obvious to those around us, friends and family, coworkers, because they're seeing the behavior. They hear us arguing for our own limitations.
Yes.
It's like we're trying to live up to some sort of standard that we've defined, but we haven't even told anybody what that is. Or sometimes the standard is something that would take more of a giant quantum leap to reach rather than the baby steps that we can take right now. So you've written that courage isn't the absence of fear. It's feeling the fear and executing anyway. How can listeners use this to make a decision that they don't feel ready for right now?
When we're feeling that fear, remember that that's an emotion. It doesn't mean it's actually true. I actually have a great example of that with, something that happened on the ski slope with my son, but it's realizing in the moment. I mean, fear stands for, and I'm sure many of us have heard this, false evidence appearing real. We don't want to act based on the fear. It's okay to feel it. We all feel it. And if we can recognize and be okay that, yeah, I'm feeling fear. And what does that really mean? And what does it not mean? Because our courage really does come when we're able to understand in those moments that fear is not factual. It's a feeling. And we don't have to decide based upon it.
I want to hear about this ski story that you just mentioned. What happened on that?
So we went on an annual ski trip. And at this time, my kids were now 6 and 8. And my son is older. And we, skied together multiple times. And my daughter was younger. She was the 6-year-old. And we got to the top of this intermediate steep run. And my daughter, Kaden, fearless as ever, zips on down the mountain as if she's auditioning for the next Winter Olympics. and meanwhile, my son Campbell froze at the top of the mountain and was just like not moving. And there I was, kind of stuck between chasing after my little daredevil before she skis right off a cliff and literally, TJ, trying to coax my son down the mountain. My son looked at me and said, "Mom, why is Caden such a better skier than me?" That was like fear literally trapping him and gluing him to the top of the mountain. And I looked at him and said, "Campbell, your sister is not actually a better skier than you. You actually have better ski skills, but your sister has a different mindset. And what she believes is different." And that was just so signifying of this belief behavior breakthrough. And actually, after he was able to shift, he finally turned his skis downward and skied right down the mountain and was so excited and wanted to do that run over and over and over after he believed something different.
And it's such a memorable story because I can envision everything that you're talking about. And for the young kids in my family, it's not skiing, it's swimming. So we have some that are like a fish out of water and they don't want to get out of the pool. And then we have some kids that they want to leave swimming lessons ASAP, so
right.
It's interesting how the same activity can be so exciting for someone, and then it's so threatening and it's such a hurdle, like they would just rather not even be there at all.
Like in my case, my son had skied for more years. He had more experience. He truly was a better skier. And so it is so interesting that you can have, like you said, two totally different experiences, but one is based on skill set and one is based on mindset.
And sometimes having more skills in an area, we have even more trepidation, hesitation, because we see more of the minefield of what could go wrong. And I've heard you talk before on some of your videos about the difference between achieving more and creating a life that is aligned with your values. So what's the first step that you would guide someone through to take action in the direction of creating a more meaningful life?
The bigger the why, the bigger the try, and the better the how. So why is this important to me? And then is it aligned with who I want to be? So who do I want to be? Who do I want to impact? And how do I want to really live while I'm accomplishing whatever, fill in the blank? Because when we get to the bigger why, we get to the meaning behind the goal, the what, whatever it is we want to accomplish, And that just helps us view our lives in a much more meaningful way than just accomplishment. And believe me, I am extremely motivated. I definitely want to achieve and accomplish. I just came to a place where I was able to stop and look for the meaning and the impact beyond the accomplishment. It doesn't make you less ambitious. I haven't become less ambitious, but I've become more intentional about what my ambition is in service of at a higher level.
And just the piece that you don't have to get it all done in 1 year or even in 5 years. I mean, having a roadmap for what you want to accomplish is great, and having goals, but sometimes we beat ourselves up because we didn't get there in the timeline that is sort of in our imagination.
That's what I think gets overwhelming for us. And people sometimes feel paralyzed by that. If they're thinking I always use the mountains as a metaphor for mindset, but if you see the whole mountain and think, oh my gosh, I have to get to the top by this time frame, it's very daunting sometimes versus I just need to take the next step.
If you try to climb the whole mountain at once, oftentimes in that analogy, you get pretty exhausted quickly and you use a lot of your resources way faster than you should have. And it's sort of more of the sprint mentality.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I could not agree more. I had that experience doing the Manitou Incline. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's in Colorado Springs, and it's like 2,300 steps straight up a mountain. And I did it untrained, but it's a good lesson on failing forward, right? And not having to just go so fast that you use all your resources. Because I did start out really fast and didn't train for it, and then thought, I need to collect myself and slow down, and I can do this, but I need to pace myself and I need to be intentional about it. And I did finish it. But at first I thought, oh my gosh. And, of course you start having fear and limiting beliefs, and you have to break through that.
And you don't want to eat all your granola bars at once if you have a mountain to climb. That's what I was thinking. Or your beef jerky.
Yeah, exactly. You're so right. You're so right. I'm going to remember that because I'm going rock climbing tomorrow.
You spent more than 20 years working with hiring talent, developing them for so many different companies through ProActivate. Also on the executive leadership side, for those teams and those board members. What has this taught you about bringing out the best in people?
And we can't really motivate people. That has to come from inside. But really great leaders, if someone could perform here on their own, can help them change the trajectory of their success. But I think the key to unlocking that comes from developing them very intentionally in the area of mindset. And so what I have found over these 20 plus years is, yes, we have to first hire the right people. We've got to get the right people in the right seats. And most companies only qualify talent on skill sets. We've got to learn to incorporate mindset into that process. And that's really what the performance mindset shift is all about, is solving the problem of underperformance by transforming how we think.
Now, the company that we're talking about, your company, ProActivate, you are both the founder and chairwoman. What inspired you to start this company back in 2005?
I had been in the traditional staffing industry, leading sales and operations, and intentionally chose that industry early on in my career because I knew I'd be exposed to all different types of industries and there was a lot of growth opportunity. Then eventually I led sales at Career Builder. I was VP of Sales and VP of Training and Development at careerbuilder.com. And through being both on the staffing industry side and then being a VP of Sales myself, utilizing traditional recruiting firms as well as, job boards, I saw a real gap in the market, TJ, for leaders of sales and marketing organizations to really be able to protect and propel their revenue as it relates to talent. I wanted to create ProActivate and to really focus in that go-to-market space and leadership space. So we do sales, marketing, operations, anything supporting revenue generation, all the way up to C-level, like a CRO, COO, things like that. But I created a very unique model to fill in the gaps of what I believed the traditional models were missing. And it's been a great ride. Yes, we started, I remember the first day, January 5th, 2005. So over 2 decades ago.
So to get to that point where you were starting your own company, you personally had to overcome a lot of things internally. So you teach some of the obstacles that we struggle with on a daily basis are often not external, but they are internal. They're thought patterns that are on repeat, that we're listening to subconsciously. So what are some of the biggest internal barriers that you had to overcome at that time?
Probably the lie I adopted sometime in childhood, which a lot of it goes back to not even realizing when you adopted it. That internal barrier, so to speak, was I'm not important enough. I'm not sure I can trust my own gut instinct, which can affect you in business and, parenting and so many things. These limiting beliefs and thought patterns aren't all that creative. If most of us would just stop and realize what's holding us back from time to time or very often, it's typically the same belief, but we get so much more adept at realizing it and saying, okay, you know what? I can choose to rip up that silent contract that I somehow signed without even realizing I adopted this belief. I mean, of course, I would never say that I'm not important enough.
These beliefs are so common across different cultures, demographics, backgrounds. It really doesn't matter where in the world someone came from. We're all affected by different ones at different stages of life.
Yeah.
And it's almost like the way I view this is that there's sort of a grid pattern in like the actual collective consciousness itself that is sort of overlaid. It's like, all right, if you want to break through this glass ceiling, you have to first become aware that that pattern is holding power over what you're doing.
Yes. And that is so powerful what you just said, TJ, because really and truly, it's the awareness is what most of us are missing. And once we're aware, we get to decide what we believe moving forward. I liken it to a mindset garden, so to speak, and we all have some big rocks in our garden, and we can choose to throw the rocks out. We can choose to stop watering the weeds and only water the flowers, but we have to be aware first that this rock is holding us down.
I want to hear more about your trip to Geneva, where you spoke for the United Nations there. What can you tell us about this experience?
That was never something on my radar. I was actually asked to do that after someone saw my TED Talk. But there were a lot of smaller yeses and risks and uncomfortable steps along the way that got me to be recognized and asked to participate in that. So I think that goes back to like the mountain analogy, or you could think of it as like a staircase, but sometimes we want to see the entire path before us, before we're willing just to take a step and say yes to something that maybe makes us a bit uncomfortable. But as my stepmom, who was like a mother to me, so I call her mom, like my mom said to me, you have to be uncomfortable to grow. I really had to step out of my comfort zone there as well. But because I said yes to other things, a very meaningful moment came.
When we finally arrive at some of these scenes or events or life milestones that we thought like, okay, when I get to this point, when you're actually standing there, you have the lights or you have people around you that you need to actually interact with. Some people describe it as almost like an out-of-body experience or a surreal, because you start to realize like it almost becomes funny in a way. It's like, oh, this is what I told myself that I wanted, but now I'm here. So now with great power comes great responsibility. Getting more than 1 million people to view, enjoy, see your TED Talk nowadays is a major accomplishment because people see that brand. They have more than 45 million subscribers just on YouTube. People see that brand as a trusted source for information that is usually very new to them. It's a framework, it's a technique, it's a tool, it's a story that they've never heard said that way. And you know how competitive it is even to get on those TED stages.
I do. Thank you for saying that. Yes. And I couldn't agree with you more. Those moments, they do hold responsibility. And sometimes we just want to get to the moment. I really consciously and intentionally that day said, I want to be present in this moment. And I remember thinking that standing there, like, I'm going to take all of this in. This is meaningful and there is great responsibility with it. And I feel that way every time I do a keynote talk. I am prayerful and thoughtful before I go on that stage about the impact and that my words reflect the impact that each person needs. And so it does require great responsibility. It's really cool when we can be in the moment and really present for that. And that's how I felt at the United Nations, which I was grateful for.
And I've heard that you're also learning some new languages. So what are those?
Well, I am learning Italian and I love Italy. And someday I would love to just go there and go to culinary school. And what I mean by culinary school is find like an Italian grandma to take me in for like 6 weeks and teach me everything she knows. So I've been learning Italian. However, I'm pivoting a bit right now and going to work on my Spanish because my daughter's going to be at university in Madrid. And so I'll be spending quite a bit of time visiting her there. And I know I can put my Spanish in action a lot in the next year or so.
You can go visit the palace, go to the Prado. You guys can go watch some bullfighting because it's still legal in Madrid, like we talked about before this. And you're also learning guitar. I want to mention 3 of the books that you've written. Now, these are focused on sales, leadership, mindset, and performance. So the first book is called Journey to the Top. Your second book was The Power of Two. And the third one is How to Source, Qualify, and Hire Elite Sales Talent.
I love Journey to the Top, How to Reach Your Peak Performance Life, because it really goes into how to make that shift in our thinking and really how to adopt a growth mindset, TJ, and override our automatic operating system of our mindset. So just an interesting statistic, we naturally have 60,000 thoughts a day, and 80% of them, until we learn to flip the script and have the performance mindset shift, 80% of them are naturally negative, and we don't even realize it. We don't realize how many times a day we're missing opportunities because our thoughts are holding us back, and we're not stepping forward, or we're playing small. And so this teaches how to overcome that and literally grow our mindsets and really practice having a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset and breaking through those limiting beliefs and thinking at a higher level.
Craig Colby, the founder of OneStream, wrote this as part of a testimonial after seeing you in action on stage. This isn't motivational fluff. Jamie provides clear, actionable frameworks that change behavior. And when behavior changes, performance rises. I want to mention some of the signature keynote talks that you do. One is called The Performance Mindset Shift, and the other one is called Breaking Through Limiting Beliefs. All these topics that we've been going over today. You also offer executive coaching and advisory board work. So you do the stage presentations, but you also do the in-person workshops with companies. What's some of the feedback that you remember getting from people after they leave your workshops?
We literally get into the growth mindset by I call it the solutions room, the growth mindset versus the situation room, the fixed mindset. So we will take real life challenges that could change the trajectory of our success and form a group and literally be a solutions room for one another and practice the growth mindset. Or we'll take our goals, the why, the what, the how, and, putting those into action so that we're actually living in alignment with what we're trying to achieve and perform. And we do a breaking through limiting beliefs exercise that is so powerful. Literally where people are identifying the limiting belief that's been holding them back that could truly propel them forward to a completely different level of professional and personal success. And we do that through an exercise where they identify it and then they choose their new belief moving forward. They figure out where that came from. They choose their new belief going forward. And we use a geode to symbolize this. So they'll break the geode with a hammer and see the beautiful crystals inside, which is the truth, right? That's always been there all along. And so these are very interactive workshops that take the key principles of the keynote and put them into action. And I get feedback about how meaningful and impactful and really valuable that is, because when you do something physical, it ties the message in so much more deeply.
So to book Jamie as a speaker and to learn about her books and all of her offers, go to jamiecrosbie.com. You can also explore more about her company at proactivate.net. The company page on LinkedIn already has more than 50,000 followers. And you can also connect with Jamie directly by finding her on LinkedIn by searching Jamie Crosbie. Jamie, thanks so much for joining me for today's episode.
Absolutely. It was truly a pleasure, TJ. Thank you for having me.
To hear more experts share their story, subscribe to the TJ Moore Podcast on YouTube and follow this show on Spotify and Apple Podcasts to listen anywhere you go. Like and comment on this video if you found today's conversation valuable, and share this episode with someone in your life. I'll see you next week.